Good afternoon, everybody. It's me after a very long time. I know. You guys are probably all wondering, like, hey, where the heck did Techie Tales go? Well, I'm here. I've been dealing with a lot of life stuff, a lot of things breaking around me, a lot of appliances. I got this new backyard smoker and it's just completely broken. And now I have to deal with lugging this big heavy thing, getting it returned, and just trying to get my money back. That's where I've been. Where have you all been? I'm wondering, how are you all doing? Did you watch the 4-hour KOMETA guide? Yes. So did you guys watch the KOMETA guide, or did you watch the sonar radar 2 instances guide? If so, how are you doing? And just feel free to kind of let me know how that's been for you, how this journey has been for you as you grew through it with my videos, me as your mentor, your sensei, if you will. But yes, Plex Meta Manager is now officially KOMETA. I want to say KOMETA, but I know it's KOMETA. Kind of like a comet. And they rebranded, for those of you who don't know, and it's a great name. And it's a good thing because it was giving Plex too much credit, right? Didn't we all think Plex Meta Manager was like an invention of Plex for some reason at first when we started this whole journey? I know I did. Today is going to be a short and a sweet video. How sweet, you ask? Oh, milky sweet. But today we're going to do a video regarding something with builders, specifically a quote-unquote dumb builder, derp. So the dumb builder, and more specifically, the PlexSearch attribute. So what is the PlexSearch attribute? So the PlexSearch attribute is a quick way to find all your sort of certain specific things with the library. And what does that look like? So when you click here under a TV show library, and you go under advanced filters, you get something like this in Plex. And things you can do with this is you can create a collection utilizing these. You could save it as a smart collection, a playlist, a smart playlist, add to collection. But you can essentially sort of utilize advanced filters to return certain shows. So for example, very straightforward, right? Match all of the following. So we can add certain conditions, something that's a show title from a certain studio. Let's do instead of show title, because TV would show title, right? But and of course in movies it would show movie title, right? And we could do show title, what studio, and lastly kind of what genre, right? So genre is contains. So let's say the show title I wanted to do contains King of the Hill. Okay, studio is Fox. There we go. King of the Hill was Fox. Genre is comedy. Of course, King of the Hill is comedy. So PlexSearch kind of recreates these advanced builders utilizing what is called a base attribute. So you have to start each search with either any or all as a base. So match with all of the following. So all of these must be true to return it, or match with any. So any of these conditions must be true, right? So it could be a show that has King. It could be a show that has genre that is a comedy. It could be a studio that contains Fox, but doesn't necessarily mean it has to be Fox, right? So genre is horror, right? So if I were to change that here, genre is drama. Right, we get King of the Hill. What if I say studio contains cartoon? Oh well. let's see here. If I were to do show title contains Aqua, I would also get Aqua Teen Hunger Force, right? Because we have match any of the following. Now, if I do all of the following, there's no such show that's called King Aqua that's a drama, right? So similarly, that's kind of what we want to do with these Plex searches. So now how does that work? So naturally, we have something called special attributes at the top level, along with the base attributes. So for example, if we look at just one of these examples here, let's blow up this screen. So one of the base attributes that we can have is, the special attributes that we can have along with a Plex search base attribute, like all, is sort by, limit, the type that we're talking about. So again, special attributes here. Let's take a look. Sort by, limit, type, and validate. So these are all very straightforward sort of examples, okay? So these are the special attributes you can use alongside Plex search, okay? When you're utilizing Plex search attribute in some kind of definition, whether it's a collection definition, whether it's an overlay definition, okay? That's where this would come into play. Or even if it's a dynamic collection, I'm sure you can utilize Plex search. And Plex search is a kind of a good way to kind of sort certain things, right? Because remember from the KOMETA guide, it's that we don't want to use something with too many filters, because filters, if you get too many things, it starts bogging down the library, right? If you're trying to like do a lot of filters. So that's where you kind of have to do smart collections. It's one of those things. But Plex search is kind of well, let's take a look here. Filters. So filters allow you to filter, but remember, filters can be particularly slow. Try to build it using a smart label collection plus Plex search or another builder if possible. So that's what we're doing here. We're trying to use Plex search so that we don't have to utilize the filter as much, right? With Plex all, or we're not trying to bog down our KOMETA run. So by KOMETA run, I mean the run time that it takes for KOMETA to process through the entire library. So once we have these special attributes, we also have sort options, right? And these are specific depending on what you're utilizing Plex search for. If you're trying to use Plex search to sort a certain, movie library, a show library, you're trying to do a builder level, right? To try to, like, for example, builder level episodes, right? So if you're trying to sort and return certain episodes, remember, Plex search can work across movies, TV show titles. You can force it to go under episodes. And let's take a look here. Yeah, so right here, you can even see that it says to search by season, episode, album, track, you must use the builder level setting. And don't forget that the builder level can make season, episode, or track collections and overlays from the following builders: Plex all, Plex search. So for these builders, Plex all and Plex search, right? These are the Plex dummy builders. This is a tracked builder, and this is the MDB builder. You can start drilling down. So remember, the seasons is this kind of, in terms of overlays, it's the season posters. In terms of collections, it would be perhaps season collections of certain random shows that you want, for example, like different seasons. I don't know. From the top of my head, I can't immediately think of an example where I would utilize builder level season, but episodes, sure. In terms of collections, the best episodes of the best comedy shows in your library. That's something that builder level episode can do, utilizing maybe PlexSearch and some kind of, let me see, is there something with rating on here? Yeah, rating. You guys see it? I don't see it. Show rating, content rating, right? Remember, you can set it to grab from Rotten Tomatoes, and then there's the user rating. Is there user rating on here? I don't see it. Maybe it's because my library doesn't have any user ratings. I would think it would, but maybe content rating, show rating, something like this. So builder level would play into that with PlexSearch. The thing that I want to kind of focus on is right here, searches. So how do searches work? If we kind of look at essentially what, that's a little too big. Okay, if we look at kind of what searches are, there's always 3 fields for the Plex search, and these fields get relayed through these 3 definitions: attribute, modifier, and value. So an attribute, dot modifier, value. So let's take a look. What does that mean by attribute? The special attributes? No, those are top level attributes that go alongside PlexSearch. But really the attributes come, string searches. So with modifiers. So what are modifiers? Is not, begins, ends, not. String search can take multiple values only as a list. We're going to actually cover this exact thing because it can get a little lost in translation. But here are the attributes, for example. Now let's take a look at string attributes. So once again, we were covering string searches, so we can use it with modifiers or without. Now, if we don't do any of these modifiers, not, is not, begins, or ends, it usually indicates contains. So you see how on here it says show title contains, right? So if I were to want to use the attribute, for example, title. Okay, now what library can I use this attribute with? Movie libraries or show libraries? Okay. And then obviously, I'm almost certain you can also utilize builder level to specify episode titles, right? So you can use this title attribute with this modifier. So we're going to cover it. So in a unique way. Now, what I want to explain that I'm using it for is not necessarily a tag search. And yes, you can also search for content tags. You can even do things like date searches, things that were added after, before. Anything that you see here, date the show was added. You see anything and everything that's under here. I'm sure there's something for HDR. Let's take a look. HDR. Yeah, there it is. Boolean attributes. True and false, right? What is Boolean? True and false. They have no modifier, so is only stuff that's HDR. So like, there's such an overwhelming, infinite level of stuff that you can do with builders alone, which makes KOMETA, formerly known as Plex Meta Manager, so versatile. And it's one of the things that I always find myself wanting to come back to. Out of all the community applications that I take very personal investment in, it's always the KOMETA / Plex Meta Manager team. You can even probably find me in the Discord if you look hard enough. I maintain stealthy there, though. I'm not going to tell my name there. But some people have figured it out and messaged me and asked me for help about a video. And I've tried my best to help, but I always tell people, listen, leave your questions in the comments. Someone else 100% probably has the same issue. And it wouldn't be fair to, give personal help. And that's why I don't really do it. Now, what are we doing today? So what I wanted to do was I essentially have a bunch of TV shows, right, guys? So like you probably have a TV show library with a bunch of TV shows of very similar qualities, right? So perhaps you have a TV show where you're following the trash guide, which for a lot of the normal TV shows, he does web 1080p quality profile in terms of sonar, and so therefore a lot of your shows are web 1080p. which is great. Now, what happens if you're really someone like me that's perhaps a collector of certain things and has very niche releases? So for one of my niche releases would be, for example, I have Looney Tunes, or I have Disney animated shorts, for example, that have what we call a mixed quality, because there is no such thing of like all those Disney shorts in Blu-ray quality or 1080p. Unfortunately, like Warner Brothers or Disney, they just don't give a shit anymore about that stuff, right? So what would you do if you have all these like kind of mixed qualities in a certain TV show, and gosh, you wish you could just play like certain only the 1080p stuff, or only the stuff that actually has been released in HD, right? So you can definitely sort of, perhaps, I'm almost certain of it, make a collection. And I'm just thinking out loud here. I could always make a collection, and then have that collection be present in the library, with perhaps a TV show. And to be admittedly honest here, I have not delved whatsoever with TV show level collections. Maybe that's something I may need to do. Leave it in the comments if you think that's something that, or how would you feel like that would be applicable to somebody? But for me, I can't think of a use case. But for me, what I just wanted to simply do was I wanted to apply the resolutions to certain episodes, right? And certain TV shows specifically, aka Disney animated shorts and Looney Tunes, and not the Looney Tunes show. So how would I go about applying HD overlay, this, that, on essentially these sort of episode, let me put it here, kind of like this going on 480p, but be more specific to, okay, I only want to apply it to, let's say, Below Deck and King of the Hill, for example. Pretend that's Disney and this is Looney Tunes, right, on the right. How would I do that? And the answer comes to immediately, well, you're going to want to do a PlexSearch of a resolution template, and you're going to want to obviously create a resolution template, and you want to really base it off of perhaps one of the existing defaults. So right here I have the resolutions default. Now this, if you want to take a look at it, it's very exceptional. It's a headache actually, but it's mostly understandable. So I could roughly kind of cover it here. We have an external templates definition, external templates being defined default. So it's a templates.yml. And in that we have certain conditionals for in terms of what overlay, suppression, offset, defaults, conditions for certain offsets. So conditions, if the type is addition, dovetail, then vertical align should be at the bottom. Certain key right here, certain keys that it would apply, that this condition would apply for. So not only would you need, that these to apply in order to apply a certain value. Very just interesting stuff with offsets. It's just very, very long. It's exhaustingly long. And then finally we have the overlays defined with each key, and each key connects to a regex expression that defines. So if key 4K would define, let's see here, the value of 2160 4K for the template variable res, which plays back into, it's like, it plays back into everything else. So all, and this is really where we want to start messing with stuff. So what I did was I removed Plex all, and I changed it to builder level episode, and then I did a PlexSearch. This is kind of where like it gets super duper tricky. Okay, so pay rather very close attention, and let me try and just try to. I think the font is okay. I'm not going to change the font, but pay attention here. So we have PlexSearch. This is the definition, or the attribute that we're using in this certain resolution overlay definition file. And we do all as the base attribute. Okay. And then we define it as, and remember, you have to have one, all, or any. So if we do all, it's essentially saying, okay, right, so HDR would be one of them, right? So it would have to have an HDR, but HDR is a template variable here that pretty much can describe, if you look, conditions. So only if something is defined by alt HDR, then its value is true. Okay. Alt HDR. So, for example, right here, 4K dovetail, alt HDR, defined by key 4K. The alt is HDR. So for this particular overlay, then we also want to make sure that HDR is true. It's like a double check, if you will, so anytime this overlay gets applied, anything with HDR, we want to also make sure that HDR is set to true. We want to make sure that PlexSearch returns only HDR stuff for HDR overlays, like 4K dovetail, 4K plus, etc. So this is kind of a check. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So resolution, this changes depending on whatever the overlay is for the resolution. So we want it to have a certain resolution defined by the template variable res. If we look up here, res is a conditional based on certain key overlays. So 4K would have, as I showed you earlier. What I wanted to do is I wanted to say, okay, let's apply the PlexSearch with the title. So what's weird is when I first kind of did it, I was like, okay, so there's an any, and then I was thinking I had to do something like this, any, and then I had to do title, Disney, something like this, or, title. So the title has anything with the title, contains Disney, title. Remember, if we don't define a modifier, and the way you do a modifier is not, right? Remember modifiers. So if we look here, there we go, string modifiers. The way that you utilize is, remember, you take the attribute dot modifier and then you put a value on it, right? So a lot of these ones we can kind of see how it's applying the modifier. I'm trying to find it here on this. Okay, so it's not on here. Okay, wow. So it's not on the example, but essentially that's kind of how you do it, is not Disney. So, but really, it's just very confusing, because in the wiki it says, oh, you're going to do all, and you can put any amounts of all in there, and then you could put any amounts of like any in there, and it could be like this big branch or whatever. So it was confusing, and I definitely needed some help with it. But really what we kind of want to do with this one, and it's just the YML formatting thing, and it's also a KOMETA thing, how it's been coded. But it was pretty much explained to me that the way it works is you can put multiple any's under here, but you want to put a dash instead. So you're not going to do something like this where any of the title, nothing like this. all you need to do is any dash. So you're saying anything with the resolution, regular expression, resolution template variable, and then that's defined over here by these overlays, overlay calls, right? And so you're gonna go anything that has the title, like that. Anything that has a title, and then you want to put these quotes. If it's only one thing, you could put Disney, like that. However, if you want to do something with multiple lists, right, what you kind of want to do is something like this. So you want to do a dash per attribute. So let's say I want something that has the title that contains Looney Tunes, right? Or sorry, that contains Disney animated shorts, but that also has the word Looney Tunes. Now, if I have two shows that say Looney Tunes, like Looney Tunes and the Looney Tunes show, if I were to only do contains, it would bring back both shows. And the Looney Tunes show is all 1080p, so I don't want it to list the resolution overlays for that show. So I want to make it very specific. So for one, I would do title, right? Contains, right? These dots. And then what I would do is I would go title contains Disney animated shorts, like that. You can also alternatively, if it's just not a list, you could just do this. Disney animated shorts. So you could put it in quotes because it's singular, like this. See how right here is an example. All title dot ends Simpsons. So you could define it like this for a singular thing. Now you could do Disney animated shorts, or you could just stick to a list, right? Because you never know when you want to add to this. So you could do something like this. The next thing that I thought I had to do was, okay, so how do I do one that says title is Looney Tunes? Nothing else, just Looney Tunes. This will not work. And that's kind of the crazy part. It will not work. Now, begs to show that, okay, every attribute, you might be thinking every attribute has to have its own dash, right? Wrong. So the way it works is if you're adding multiple of the same attributes, but you're altering it with the modifier, you want to get rid of that dash right there. And you want to do something like this. Something like this. Like that. There we go. This is kind of what you want to do with this one. Something like according to this. And then what you want to also do is similar like this. You want to put a dash in Looney Tunes. Okay. Now, what would this end up doing? So let's take a look based off of the original example. If it's not clear what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to specifically apply overlays to just certain show episodes. Okay. Only episodes of something with Disney animated shorts on the show's title, and something where the title is Looney Tunes. Again, remember, this is the title attribute, not the episode title. And I want to make that very clear because it's very confusing. Wouldn't you be like, well, wouldn't this mean the episode title if you're using builder level episode? No. So the way that it seems like KOMETA's done it is KOMETA has essentially separated the two for some reason, I'm assuming. So we have show title, and then we have an episode title. Well, it makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm thinking when it comes to builder level episode and you do title, why doesn't it automatically default to episode title? But then you see it gets confusing, right? Because if you change it by builder level, then you're the same thing that would change with a different builder level. It suddenly doesn't make sense. Even though it makes sense, I kind of understand why, because they're trying to keep this very relevant across multiple configurations, so to speak. So we can see here the title applies to show libraries, but episode title obviously only applies to show libraries because it's only in TV shows. Movies don't have episodes, so goes to figure that episode title wouldn't work under a movie library. But yeah, I think it kind of makes a lot of sense in a way. Could be a little confusing when you first look at it. You're like, but you put builder level episodes, so why would title be? Yeah, I know. The title is just the show name. Let's pretend it looks like this, right? The library. So if I only wanted it to apply to, let's say, Aqua Teen Hunger Force and Looney Tunes, then I would say, okay, anything that contains the title Aqua. Okay. So anything that has that contains the title Aqua in it. And, you know, obviously you might say, why didn't you just do title is and just specify that way? Let's just stick to it because I'm trying to show you varied stuff. So it contains Aqua. And the title is Looney Tunes. Okay? Let's go ahead and save this out. Did I save it? Is it saved? There we go. It's saved out. So now what's going to happen is it should apply overlays just for Aqua and Below Deck Mediterranean. Notice how this doesn't have any overlays. So now we're just going to go ahead and run KOMETA. Yeah, you know what? I make mistakes too. Python kometa.py.r. And we're going to run this thing. So based on this, the title is the Looney Tunes and Aqua. So these two should have overlays. We saw earlier Aqua Teen already had overlays, but just go with me here. So if we look at Looney Tunes, we see that 1080p FHD is applied here. And then if we look at Aqua Teen Hunger Force, we see that we got resolutions there as well. Now, if we take a look at the Looney Tunes show, no resolutions, right? And so I just want to show you how finicky this kind of organization can be. So, you know, if you put, you know, for example, if I were to just do, let's see, if I were to put a dash here, you know, if I were to put like a sort of dash title like this, it doesn't work, right? If I were to do it this way, dash title is dash Looney Tunes. Let's go ahead and run it. You'll see it's just it just doesn't play well. So, you know, what might seem obvious, you think, okay, there's a dash here, I gotta put dashes, right? No, because then it does ruin that. So remember, every attribute has to already be coexisting. See how that disappeared on the Below Deck. So yeah, you can't do that and like that. Now, if I were to have done title contains Looney Tunes, well then yeah, obviously the Looney Tunes show has the word Looney Tunes in it, then all of a sudden these two would have that. So remember, lists are done with dashes in terms of YML and in terms of how KOMETA picks it up as well. And so this is something we have to be cognizant about. Now, if I wanted to do, for example, what other sort of attribute did I want to do? Well, let's see. Probably something with, you know, you could also do like a tag attribute, I'm sure of it, in terms of year, right? So you could do year. I'm pretty sure there's an example towards the bottom, which is taking forever to show, but let's go down here. Here's the year one, but it's not so much a tag attribute, I believe. Well, actually, yeah, year is the tag attribute. Yeah, so any, and then year is a tag, so it's going to look at the year tag. Decade is another one, so decade would be more right here. Decade uses the year tag to match the decade. So these are tag attributes. So what if you wanted to do tag attributes with tag modifiers? So apparently you could just do is and is not. So it gets a little simpler. Tag, so just using the tag by itself, or the dot not is another one. And then of course tag search can take multiple values as a list or a comma separated string. So that's interesting. Or you could do .regex. So that's that's a little something different. But tag searches can be used with no modifier or with .not, except for decade and resolution, which can be only used with no modifier. So you can't do decade .not 2000. So nothing for the 2000. You have to. There's no modifier on that one. And so again, so this is kind of the interesting part. So now that I was able to do that, I'm able to choose certain specific things with PlexSearch and utilizing the any and all. Now, if I were to change this to all, well, then what that would do is that PlexSearch all, anything that contains all of, and it would have to have like everything. It would have to have the resolution. It would also have to have something that contains Aqua, something that also is Looney Tunes, so something called Looney Tunes Aqua. Has to be something that has an HDR tag as well. So whether it's true or false, it has to have that value returned. So, I think doing all in any is a good case. I could get a little more in depth about it, but at the moment I can't really come up with a more complex example of this. But just something to realize with PlexSearch, kind of how it works. And just wanted to get a more in-depth video on PlexSearch, because there's only so much you can cover in a 4-hour guide. Take care, guys. Bye.